Acknowledgement. So we would like to acknowledge that Concordia University, where many of us are today, is located on unceded indigenous lands. The Ganagaha Nation is recognized as the custodians of these lands and waters. Jojegai is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. So we respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within Montreal and the community, and feel that acknowledging is an important step towards building trust and creating and acknowledging these relationships. So if you want to find out more about the land that you're on today, we suggest that you can find out who the custodians of the land which you're on today by visiting the link in the chat right there. So I'll introduce myself now. So I'm Nick. I'm the president of the John Wilson Sustainable Enterprise Committee. JSEC is a student-run organization in the business school, and our vision is to see business and sustainability operating as one. Our mission, we demonstrate how business and sustainability how sustainable concepts can be applied to business operations, as well as how business frameworks can be leveraged to realize sustainable ideas. And that's why this event is so exciting to us. We're very happy to be able to bring you guys this panel today just because of how important and relevant recycled plastic is when it comes to our environmental impact. So as you can see, we have a few amazing panelists that will give some insights about what the opportunities are that lie in recycled plastics and how businesses can take advantage of it for themselves. So I will turn it over now to our moderator, Sarah, and she can introduce CP3.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sara. I'm the co-founder of CP3, or the Concordia Precious Plastic Project. And we're also really excited to be here today and for this panel and to be collaborating with JSEC on this event. CP3 is a multidisciplinary team that focuses on transforming Concordia's plastic waste and turning it into new items for Concordia students and the community of Montreal. And we also want to bring a lot of educational content about the plastic crisis through our social media platforms. But today we're talking about how we can change and bring recycled plastic and bring it to the market, and how we can actually implement sustainable approaches in our business. So as Nick mentioned, I'll be moderating, and I would love, we're going to introduce our two guest speakers today. So if Rafi, who's from Prevented Ocean Plastic, and Michelle from Eska, we're really excited to have you here. Rafi, if you want to begin with a small introduction about yourself.
Sarah, thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate the dialogue. I'm Rafi. I'm the director of our core business, Bantam Materials, that has our fully traceable and independently certified brand, Prevented Ocean Plastic, that supplies plastic collected from at-risk coastal communities, fully traceable through that supply chain, from collection, recycling, distribution, and manufacturing into final products that come back onto shelves. We're really proud to say that this is the largest ocean plastic prevention program right now in the world by a fairly large margin. And we've been able to collect more than 1 billion bottles from at-risk coastlines over the course of the last 2 years only. This business before was in general recycling, and in the general recycling we've been at for well over a decade. I was very lucky to be the chair of Europe's main plastic recycling conference, referred to as ICIS, about 3 years ago, and we do our very best to give a real truthful and reality-based view on how plastic recycling and real ocean plastic prevention can work.
Thank you. We're really excited to hear more about how you actually came about to doing those and some of the actions that you did and the challenges also that you faced to implement all that. Next, I'll ask Michelle if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and Eska.
Yes, thanks for the invitation today. Very excited. My name is Michelle MacArthur. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Eska Inc. Eska is a Canadian company, Quebec-based company with a head office in Laval and a factory in Abitibi, near the town of Amos. We produce a natural spring water in sparkling and flat water containers that are made from 100% recycled plastic. Since a little bit earlier this year, our water, which comes from a Eska source, untreated, unchanged, is now available in 100% plastic containers, and we no longer produce any new plastics to make our bottles. We purely get our resin from the recycling streams of mostly Quebec, blue box system, as well as deposits, and also surrounding states and provinces in Quebec.
That's great. It's also very exciting, and exciting, especially for us who are in Quebec right now at the moment. And when we go grocery shopping, maybe we'll have a better idea now, especially of what water bottle we should pick. At least I will personally. Okay, so without further ado, I'd love to just get in right into the conversation and the discussion. And I'll start with Rafi. First, again, congratulating you on your success of redistributing about 1 billion bottles with prevented ocean plastic from different areas of the world, like you highlighted earlier. But I'm really curious about what transformation goes on between the plastic, between collection and the redistribution of it, and if there's any sort of additives that are added or specific process for contamination that happens before you can actually, give them to any type of customers.
So Europe is, UK and Europe are very regulation heavy environments. So there's this idea of how you're going to collect plastic and then bring it back into the supply chain and then make it usable for general purposes or for food use. So the first thing, which is the most important thing, is that we need to understand the fundamental dynamics of recycling. Often we think recycling is the act of putting something in a recycling bin and job is it finished. And that's obviously not the truth. What is the truth is that we need to encourage and engage in real circular economy. And real circular economy, not just the item going into the bin or being collected from an at-risk environment, which is where we do most of our work. But then when it feeds back through aggregation and becomes fit for transport and then goes to, a proper recycler, that recycler has their setup, which is appropriate to be able to both sort and then clean to a standard where they can generate certificates of analysis that will give you the basic levels of contamination in the material. When you then take that material and deliver it back into the market, you have two different types of standard processes. One would be considered what's referred to as an ABA structure. So it's not super interesting in terms of language, but it's like a sandwich. You have virgin plastic on top, you have recycled plastic in the middle, and virgin plastic on the bottom. Now, because that recycled plastic does not come into direct contact with the food, you can have a more lenient view on what goes into that B layer. That allows a lot of products on shelves to have very high recycled content, which is a really good thing. And it allows them to get to 70–80% recycled content. So for example, Michelle's offering, which is 100% recycled content, that's fantastic. But we should never scoff at things that are 70 or 80% recycled content either. It's still moving a really good volume of material from at-risk areas. Now, especially when we think about the top 10 global brands, none of them over the last decade have used more than 10% recycled content. So Michelle's offering is 10 times that, of course, but if you're using 70 or 80%, you're doing quite well. The second way to be able to do it is then to engage in what would be a true super cleaning process, which would go through different types of machineries that you guys may have heard of or maybe not have heard of, Vacuumas, Starlingers, food-approved processes that through heat and friction clean the plastic and make it suitable for direct food contact.
Perfect. That's really great. And I like how you mentioned the circular economy, and it's great that food grade plastics can enter this circular economy, because I think that's the majority of our plastic waste is coming from food and how we package food. And so, Michelle, I'm curious what factors or stakeholders drove Eska in this case to create and implement this initiative in terms of a circular economy and creating this food grade plastic.
Well, on our side, we want to do better. Our consumers want us to be better, and we do want to be better. Sometimes it's not as obvious what actions need to be taken to do that, and some consumers might think what is better, but they know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know. So we took a leap of faith that using recycled plastic for containers would be the new normal in the future. That virgin plastic would eventually go away, and that's something that our consumers would want to have. Our challenge was mainly on the the food contact aspect, just like Rafi mentioned, ensuring that we have a high quality PET bottles that can react the same way as a virgin plastic bottle, and also making sure that the bottle and that that's not impacted at the consumer's view. But the main reason is we want to offer a beverage container that's healthy with the lowest carbon footprint possible, and that's the main driving reason behind our move.
That's really impressive and really also interesting that you mentioned this carbon footprint aspect and how we can, as individuals, but also as a company as a whole, companies can be making that action and doing better. Like you said, you want to do better. So that's great on your part. Rafi, you have a lot of experience with consulting companies to make this switch as well, and kind of guiding them in these challenges of what they're faced to make the switch to using recycled plastic for their manufacturing processes. I'm wondering, in your experience, what kind of makes the switch a success story, and what challenges might arise that maybe people are not realizing, or
So the answer there is interesting, because it could both be complicated, but it's actually really quite simple. So the complicated answer is that many companies, they want to have supply chain security, they want to have good quality material, they want to be able to have things be fit for purpose, low impact on the final consumer. They want to know that if they're going to do something, that they can check it out, fully trace it, know where it's coming from. Those are all the complicated answers. But the simple answer is really, really, really basic, which is that recycled material comes from a different cost base than virgin plastic. So every now and then over the course of the last 10 years, you've had moments in time when recycled plastic would be slightly cheaper than virgin plastic. And you'd see this waterfall of companies that would make recycled plastic commitments and statements. But as soon as virgin plastic became slightly more expensive than recycled, they would leave their commitments really quite quickly. So what is necessary is a decoupling of the view of what is the price of something that's made from a recycled supply chain versus something that's coming from a virgin plastic supply chain. One product is coming from oil and petrochemicals, and the other one is cleaning up what's out there, bringing it back into a supply chain, supporting collectors, supporting social action, and then bringing that back into products on shelves. The cost bases are incredibly different. And just to upset everybody on this call, very often I have calls with the top 10 global brands all the time about their supply. And very often the difference between the virgin plastic and the recycled plastic is a fraction of a penny per unit that they produce. And a fraction of a penny, I mean, if sometimes it would be as low as 1/10 of a penny, that's 1/1000th of the cost of a $1 item. Now, sometimes it goes a little bit more, it could be half a penny, but that's that tiny fraction of a penny cost for that one item you're putting on shelf that stops recycling from happening en masse. So there's all the other factors, but the largest driver by far is cost.
That's interesting. That's also, I mean, it's surprising, but also not surprising that companies that we know very well are gearing towards what their cheapest way of making things is. And it's almost too bad that just that fraction is not enough for them.
If you think about, if you guys ever study the topic of externalities, or, the external costs of producing items, is it worth a fraction of a penny for us to ruin our beaches and our natural environment? No. Can we convince companies that are forward-looking and progressive, like Eska and people like them, to say, well, go out there, win market share, ignore a fraction of a penny on cost, communicate clearly and effectively with your consumer, and then that market share will make that small cost increase far less significant.
Yeah, and you mentioned something really interesting about market there, and how they communicate with their customers what the actual new initiative or new implementation is and what it means. And that brings me, Michelle, to the question for you, which is, you mentioned the challenge of food contact, but did you, face any challenges in terms of kind of communicating your value or initiative to your target customers, or any type of threat of greenwashing while you were doing this sort of marketing campaign?
Yeah, we don't spend a lot of money on marketing, but on this topic here, what we did do is we did put some videos out explaining a little bit what we had, what we're doing. And we put information on our containers, on our bottles. You don't see the in our packaging what we call the recycle of life. But the important part on our message is the infinity symbol that we have on our packaging, because we believe that giving a container a second life is not where we need to go. It's continuous life to that container. Giving products second life was great, 20 years ago, but now we need to reuse that plastic over and over and over again in a continuous loop. So that's why we took the position of more of an infinity symbol as opposed to just second life type concepts. So we explain that that it is a container made 100% recycled plastic, that is fully recyclable. And just that message, most consumers don't fully understand the difference between recyclable and recycled content. They also mix up deposit versus recycling and curbside and all these systems. I think over the years, we as an industry have confused people really, really well on the difference between recycled content, recyclability, deposits, and blue box and so forth. And there's a perception out there that, for example, that glass has a smaller footprint than plastic, which I'm sure Rafi knows is completely not the case. But most people don't know that. There's a difference between refillable bottles like beer bottles and so forth that do have a smaller footprint if they're reused, washed, and refilled, reused, washed, and refilled. And you see that in many countries around the world. But the vast majority of glass containers are recycled, not refillable. So there's a lot of re's, like words with re and recycle, refillable, and all those things that confuses most people. So what we're trying to just explain is recycle your container, make it a reflex. Put it in the right, whatever system you've got, deposit, blue box, curbside, whatever system you've got, use it, and we'll ensure we'll make another bottle with that material that you put in that either deposit system or blue box.
That's really, really great. And you mentioned that all the re's, all the R's, and it's changing all the time. So it's hard to even keep up, even if you are familiar. It could be a whole new set of R's the next day. So that's really interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Rafi.
If I can jump in on that, I so agree with all the things that Michelle just said. I think really, really powerful. I think overcoming the intentional confusion created in the last 30 years in the plastics market is very important. The one that I want to really emphasize is that we need to seek out material that's made out or packaging made out of recycled content. That is the key one. So out of all the things that you hear, when we put something in the recycling bin, we don't really know what's going to end up happening with it. A lot of it gets shipped out of sight, out of mind to poorer nations. When you buy something that's made out of recycled plastic, the recycling's already happened. That the good event has already happened. So there's different countries that have different stats. When you put something in your recycling bin, a certain proportion of that will be handled properly, and a certain proportion of that will be handled improperly. When you buy something made out of that recycled plastic, the recycling's actually happened. And that's, I think, the one to really emphasize and look out for.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's really just a small action that we can be taking as individuals. We've also seen that, behaviors of the customers really do impact a bit of how the targets will be in the future for a company, because they do listen to what they try to listen to what their customers want. So if we're going towards recycled packaging, then hopefully everyone will follow. More companies will follow in that footstep.
And Sarah, one of the things that I've learned over the course of the last, decade plus doing this is that the companies they operate like high schools. They start to jump on a trend so quickly. If you guys identify, select, and seek out material and sustainable packaging, material in recycled plastic, this is what happens. They operate like they're in high school.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that's actually both answered my next question, was just sort of, why are businesses not doing this switch? And it's really just this lack of knowledge, and also maybe just what consumers, our habits are not, very much there. But I do believe it's sort of this myth that we've been told to believe up until this point. But, just being here today, you guys participants, you're learning already that actions can be taken. So that's really great. You mentioned circular economy, Michelle, and how that's important for Eska to implement. And I'm curious why, what's so important to do it within Quebec? If why is a target within Quebec? I'm sure we can all guess, but if you wanted to elaborate of why you wanted to implement this circular economy, here.
Well, that's a good question. We're blessed to have a great recycled PET supplier in the province of Quebec, in Joliet. We capture most of the material that it comes from the blue box in Quebec, as well as the bottle deposit system in Quebec, but also part of the upstate New York and so forth. They have some very amazing technology, latest technologies that are available to make a very pure and refined pellet for us to make bottles with. They're local, they're close, they have the latest technologies available. Not everybody has that, so it was a perfect fit. They can sell what they make 3 times over, and we were able to strike a real good partnership with them because we aligned on values, and we aligned on what we wanted to do with recyclability in the province of Quebec, but expanding it outside as well.
Yeah, that's really wonderful that you're kind of keeping it within the province and then expanding it after. I'm sure you're also creating a lot of jobs and opportunities for everyone here in Quebec as well. And I'm curious, I'm sure the business students here are also curious, Michelle, if there was any type of main cost drivers with producing recycled PET compared to your normal bottles, and if it affected any of like your pricing, or if it affected your profit margins in any way.
Yeah, so the recycled PET, food grade recycled PET, is more expensive than virgin PET. There was a little bit of a slump in during the COVID time, but last year, which they were fairly closely aligned one to the other. But like Rafi explained, there's companies that as soon as the price goes too high, they'll flip back and forth. So the textile industry is the fiber industry is polyesters and stuff like that, or making car seats, or things that are converted into fiber type material like clothing, carpets, and so forth. Those things are interchangeable between virgin plastic and recycled plastic. But as a rule, and anyways, we're definitely paying more for our recycled plastic than we were when we didn't have recycled plastic. So that's a but we accepted that cost. We're able to find efficiencies and not pass that on to the consumers. We believe that it's in time that consumers will feel better buying one of our bottles versus one that's not made of recycled plastic, and that at the end it's the right thing to do. But it definitely is more expensive. There's no doubt.
But like you mentioned, very rewardable long term, which I think is the important when you're talking about sustainable approaches and sustainable actions that companies are making. You might be making an investment in the moment and a decision in the moment, but it would be very profitable, or not even. It would just be very good for the environment much later on, and that's the pro of that, making that decision. And Rafi, I'm curious, you mentioned a lot about, the knowledge and passing on knowledge and passing on just how to break down these myths that are going on. But you also mentioned that it's not a big investment to be switching to recycled plastic. And I'm curious why companies then, are not doing it fast enough, as if it's, based on just knowledge and you're giving it to them. Is there anything to do with more of like a steady supply of plastic waste? I think everyone here knows there's a lot of plastic waste in the environment, but are they nervous about sort of their steady supply being low or not getting enough support later down the line?
Those nerves exist, but I'm just going to repeat and re-emphasize the core point, which is it's a cost driver. It's a cost driver, and it should be unacceptable to us that for that minimal cost that we would sacrifice our beaches and our coastlines. So as it's a cost driver, then the way to overcome that is by seeking out products in recycled packaging and then have it be something that works in our favor, because companies are very predictable. Companies will go and do what is in their best interest. So if you seek out products that are made out of recycled plastic, you'll see more of them. If you don't go out of your way and seek them out, you'll see fewer of them. And that's what's happened the last 30 years. There's been a lot of delay and distract, intentional confusion. You know, toothpaste tubes very often will carry a recyclable sign on the back of the toothpaste tube. In my career, I haven't seen a single toothpaste tube recycled ever, not one. They're theoretically recyclable, but have they ever been practically recycled? Very, very, very rare. So when you seek out that recycled material, you know the recycling is actually happening, and you'll change the behavior.
Yeah, that's definitely, the market will trend towards what needs to be done in terms of sustainable approaches, and hopefully more recyclable packaging will be accessible. And I know Prevented Ocean Plastic, you guys do the Ocean Cycle certified packaging, but do you have any kind of, what's next for Prevented Ocean Plastic? Are you looking into things other than packaging, or working with companies that's trying to make a product from scratch?
For us, it's really scalability and impact. I'm really proud to say, and for everyone in this audience, I never inherited a penny. I don't come from money. I started this thing 10 years ago. I now send $100,000 every single day to coastal areas for collection of recycled plastics. And what we're trying to do now is we work in a few geographies: Southeast Asia, we work in the Mediterranean, along Central America and the Caribbean, and then Latin America. And what we're looking to do is to expand impact. So as we were speaking, Michelle and I, one of the new projects we're looking at is we're expanding, trying to get impact on the Nile, which is the plastic that comes up through Africa and feeds into the Mediterranean. We're looking at expanding some impact in geographies we've never been to before, but where there's really a need. Some cities like Lagos, Nigeria, 20 million people right on the water, terrible plastic mismanagement. Karachi, the same thing. And it's really a matter for us of taking what is a now proven and repeatable model for collection, infrastructure, and supply chain, and then showing that this is possible. We're trying to create a statement where you take the best recycler in Indonesia, the best recycler in Egypt, the best recycler in Central America, the best recycler, in Ecuador, around the Galapagos region, and they all say the same thing together. The message is exactly the same, that it's absolutely and totally possible. We just need to support the collectors. We need to support their actions of cleaning up what's on the coastlines, around the beaches, and around their coastal communities, bring it back into the supply chain, and the consumer just has to prefer it. And if we do that, it's entirely possible to clean up all this mess that we're making. But people will only go out and clean up that mess if we pay them to do it.
That's a really inspiring portion of what you do, and hopefully we can, CP3 and Concordia organizes cleanups each semester as well, and it's just a very small action that people can be taking, and then CP3 personally, we then transform that way. So we're trying to do that circular economy here at Concordia. So it's definitely very inspiring, and it's very possible. It's just a matter of willingness, like you said, and yes, cost, but also just the passion that needs to be there, and the willingness. I'm curious.
And sorry to jump in, Michelle. Sorry for saying something extra. I'm sure it's not my turn. But when we say cost, I want to highlight an abusive thing that happens in the market quite often, which is that someone will say ocean anything. They'll say ocean toothbrush, ocean water bottle, ocean something. You don't really know where that material comes from. And if you're looking to buy a pair of ocean plastic sunglasses, and now they're charging $90 instead of $50, the incremental cost for those sunglasses is minuscule. So what we want to do is get into high volume, high impact, and not have a giant cost on the consumer. So just look out for the difference between what is something like what Eska is doing, which is high volume recycled plastics into water bottles, which is required, as opposed to people out there who are trying to get you to pay triple the price for your toothbrush, for your sunglasses, where it's actually really low impact, really low volume, and it's mostly a marketing play.
you make a very good point, and this competitive advantage is really where Eska is thriving, and they've definitely gained in that 100% and volume aspect. And I know, Michelle, that like you started with water bottles, but now sparkling water bottles as well. You've now become 100% plastic recycle, using 100% recycled plastic. And I'm curious what exactly that competitive advantage that you gained, that you saw or didn't see, if any.
We don't know yet. It's hard to put your finger on the impact. We do, studies, ask questions on numerous amount of things to consumers occasionally. The importance of recycled plastic is something that we ask our consumers and non-consumers. So we kind of have we use different firms that use different groups of people. It's not conclusive, being completely transparent here, but we do believe that we'll see that needle go up, in time. We're seeing more on the taste front, more on the pure water, untreated front is what consumers are looking for. But we have faith that that the recycled content will become a much bigger and much more important aspect to consumers. So, like I said earlier, we do believe this will become the new normal, and that sometimes it takes a little bit of time for people to realize that is the case. So some of the challenges we've seen is some of the reasons why it was hard to get it done is mostly on color. We have a very transparent container, and our product is completely clear. So having a very clear container is it's important to us. We don't add colors or stuff like that. So the consumers can see, eventually they can see the difference in the container. The response has been very positive from the people that are noticing it or realizing what is being done. But I wouldn't say it's the majority yet.
Okay, well, that's still very interesting, and hopefully it will come soon. But like you said, I don't think it needs to be displayed. I think the people showing up today, we know the difference, and making those small changes as individuals is the most important part. Okay, so I think we'll switch to some of the Q&A questions, and if anyone from the audience has questions, if they've sent them to Olivia. I know some people might want to unmute themselves, so you can just let us know if you prefer to do that, and we'll take some questions from the audience. As I can keep asking questions all day, but this way we can hear what other people want to have. So I see Wanda raised her hand. Wanda, if you wanna go ahead.
Yes. First of all, thanks JSEC, and thanks Sarah and everyone for this panel. Of course, Michael and Rafi. It's very insightful. My question is first to you, Rafi. You discussed the scalability of the project and how you scale to different places. So I was wondering, what was the main advantage you had, or Banten had, when it came to scaling this to different countries?
So fundamentally for us, we're matching the desire and good work in coastal regions of collection with a regulatory and market requirement know-how. So if we see an area, so for example, if I notice that there's a population center that's by an area of water where there's a significant amount of risk and there's a significant amount of desire, need, social impact, environment, reason to be involved, but we can also make it economic where that material could be collected at scale and en masse, and then start to get economies of scale, bring it over. That's where we go. So for example, as I mentioned, if I think about an area like Lagos, Nigeria, which we want to be able to get to, 20 million people, there's plastic everywhere. It's really easy to pick it up and collect it. If you're going to, the shorelines of the St. Lawrence River, you wouldn't be able to pick up the tonnages I need to make my business work. So I'm seeking out areas where there's a lot of what would be captive supply. There's currently $100 billion worth of plastic laying on the ground for people in abject poverty to pick up, collect, and help to feed their families. $100 billion of social support if we as an economy, as a group, decide to support their efforts and collect it.
Thank you.
That's really, really great. I'll give chance to Emmanuel, who also raised his hand, and then I'll some people who have typed in the chat, I'll let them ask.
Hello, first of all, yeah, thank you for hosting this, and thank you for participating. I had 2 questions. My first one was for Michelle, and I don't know if I got this right, but I got the impression that when you were talking about the deal that you struck with the company for your recycled plastic, so is there a dearth of supply for that plastic? Like, or could you have as much as you want? Is that a challenge?
Supply is a challenge, definitely. For many reasons. So one of the the main reason is there's 2 reasons, 2 big reasons. The first one is the level of recovery. So for example, the average in Canada is about 76, 78% recovery of containers. Quebec is about at the average. There's provinces that are better, some that are not as good for the PET plastics, which is the number one plastic that you've got on the packaging. And so until we're 100%, obviously we won't be satisfied, and we'll keep on pushing to get that to 100%. The second reason why supply is a challenge is the textile. Most of the textile or the fiber industry uses a fair amount. It's hard to put a number on that, but it's in the 40% range in the North American market. And those are bottles that are recycled and then converted into either carpets or some sort of a fiber material, and then that one that's that second life thing I was talking about, where that material will no longer be recycled after that. So it's not a bad thing, and I'm not suggesting it's a bad thing that recycled plastic is also used for one-use type products, but that does put pressure on supply.
Thank you.
Our next question, I'll ask it to Rafi, and Michael was asking if you work with Ocean Cycle, which I believe you do, and what you think of their values.
So the Ocean Cycle is our certifier. I worked with them from the ground up. They're people with really, really good intentions. And we saw a need in the market for fully traceable, and then in our case, independently certified program. So we tasked Ocean Cycle with really organizing and setting up a certification program that we felt would be up to scratch. They worked on it for quite a while. We worked with them on it for quite a while, and got to a point where we were happy. One of the main differences in this market when it comes to certifications on all sorts of products is that the idea that you show up for a day once every 18 months and you leave means very, very little. So the certification that we developed with Ocean Cycle was based off of batch by batch traceability, so that every single load, every single dispatch would end up having traceability information, and that the social elevation within the group would be, or within the recycler, would be genuine, would be real. So for example, we sent Ocean Cycle on a 6-week trip earlier this year to every single collection center we work with in Indonesia. And that's quite rare to have a certifier, for us to pay, and then for the certifier to go for 6 full weeks, collection center through collection center, check every batch, check the way that it's working, and get that social elevation up there. So every now and then it's a little bit, again, it's this idea of being a knowledgeable consumer, because it's very easy to put a stamp on something, but it's very hard to know what that stamp means.
That makes a lot of sense. And another Michael, who I noticed here, unmuted himself to talk, was regarding to the ocean cleanup. If you've ever worked with the ocean cleanup company and their views, and Michael, if you want to elaborate, but I really valued the traceability of the one cycle. I think that's really important. That was another question we got. So 2 Michaels asked 2 different questions about traceability and ocean cleanup.
Yeah, sorry, there was a confusion there because I assumed you meant I'd asked ocean cycle, but this
different
was
Michael.
different Michael asking about
Yeah.
ocean cleanup. I have a good friend of mine. He works at Ocean Cleanup in the Netherlands. If you don't know their organization, I can put you into contact with them. I'm sure you do. But it seems like you're operating in the same space. And I just wanted to ask your view on what you think they're doing. Good, bad?
Sure. We operate in nearly the same space. So none of what we do is fished out of the water. Ours is a story of prevention. So we talk about at-risk coastal communities that don't have any government infrastructure to collect plastic. And we talk about engaging with those communities before it goes into the water. Ocean cleanup is dealing with material that's in the water already as a cleanup operation. And there's a really important need, and there's so many actors in the space doing wonderful things for an absolute clarity between the difference between cleanup and recycling. When plastic goes into the water, by and large, the sun and the salt degrades it and makes it unusable for recycling, which necessitates cleanup operations. A cleanup operation is not a recycling operation. So that's part of that difference. So we want to think that people going around fishing all the plastic out of the ocean, that most of that plastic is going to go and have a second life. The reality is that most of it won't, but the work that they're doing in cleanup is incredibly valuable.
That makes a lot of a very distinctive difference. Thank you for highlighting that. And I apologize about the confusions of the Michaels. Yeah, I'll ask the next question is for Michelle from the audience, from Zoe. And how does Eska compensate for the pressure of supplies? And I asked you previously if it affects your sales, and you said that it costed more, but have you seen any difference? Or do you think if it wasn't a COVID period in the last year, do you think that we would have seen a different scenario when you implemented this new 100% recycled plastic?
Yeah, so when we made the decision to go 100% recycled plastic in 2019, we had to, when we made the decision, then we had to source supply, find the right material. We did a little bit of R&D to make sure we had the right material. Quality tests and all those things, and then when we decided to take action, it was around the beginning of it was early 2020 when we started taking actions. But we had already decided in 2019 that we were going to do that. At that point in time, the resin market just collapsed, and we could have decided to not go ahead with recycled plastic and buy very, very cheap virgin plastic at that point in time. And but this is a long-term plan for us. It's not it wasn't a quick opportunity to make a buck. So we did decide to get into recycled plastic, and then the recycled plastic market did come down, not as low as virgin plastic. We've never seen it lower than virgin plastic. But then it's gone back up to normal, or actually historical highs, both on virgin and recycled plastic. But it's always a little bit more expensive to buy recycled plastic. But that we knew that going into this. It's something that's not controllable for us. It's based off things like bale price and other market costs, and that fluctuates depending on demand and supply. And so we know it'll always be more expensive. We doubt that it'll ever be cheaper, and definitely not in the next few years for sure.
Well, you make some very valid points, and I'm curious, and this is my own personal question to follow up on that, is if, down the line, if your supply chain kind of, the supply of recycled plastic here in Quebec diminishes, we're all really good. We were recycling water bottles, but we stop maybe even purchasing, enough plastic waste, and we make a really big shift. Is there a different, an action plan, a kind of plan B of where you would be getting your supply, maybe the ocean, maybe other provinces, or, thought about it?
Yeah, we think about it. Like I said, we have an excellent partner. We have the same values. We believe in the same, vision long term of plastic in general. But we do obviously have to look at, we can't have all our eggs in one basket. If they decide to stop or do something different, then we can't have our business stop. So there are other sources of recycled plastic available, not too far away. That we wouldn't have to go, too far to be able to find some sourcing. There are some recycled plastic factories in Canada and Ontario and in the United States as well. We're searching more for that higher quality, recycled plastic that we want, and food grade type product as well. But we're always looking around for plan B and C in case it's just good business.
That's good. That's great. That means this implementation is here to stay, which is a really, really exciting thing. I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I think we'll take an opportunity to talk a bit about government policy. And I know, Rafi, you're really connected with this and have made multiple different conversations and have just voiced your opinions. And I'm wondering what, I guess, in your personal opinion, what actions or more actions the government can be taking in order to support businesses, whether they be small or large, in making this switch to using recycled plastic?
Probably the most straightforward one that can be done. The easiest ways are the best ways. So in the UK in April of 2022, there's going to be a regulation coming for a minimum of 30% recycled inclusion. So making companies use a minimum of 30% recycled content. That's just very clear, very simple, very easy. And then as that progresses in different countries and different areas, if that fraction of a penny can't be dealt with the consumer, then that fraction of a penny should be dealt with by creating minimum requirements for recycled content.
Yeah, that's very clear and cut. Like you said, it should be that easy. Do you think that, or even Eska, did you get any kind of government grants, or were you able to do tax reductions with this implementation? Do you think that would be useful in the future?
We did not get any grants. We did not get any government pressure to do this either. Depending on the jurisdiction, there are some different. The Canadian government is looking at reducing the amount of plastics that is found in the environment, specifically focusing on single-use plastic, like cutlery and styrofoam and those kind of things. So but we're, we don't lobby the government. We didn't. We just, we monitor. Obviously, when we're asked questions, we answer. We're a member of some associations that represent the industry that does a better job than we do. We're not a very big company, so we don't have necessarily the resources of other organizations. But we again, we consult, we listen to, and we supply information to governments when they require. The main thing probably that we do is, and it's more on a personal note, the infrastructure for recycling, for capturing the material has been something that's been very important to us. And personally, I've been active in this world for about 15, 20 years. A lot of the public space recycling infrastructure that exists in Quebec was part of an initiative that started back in 2007 called La Table de Récupération hors foyer. It's a long French phrase, but it was basically the principle that out of home consumption, the infrastructure was not there to be able to capture that material, in that we all had the reflex at home to recycle. It was just normal. We had a bottle or a piece of paper or so forth. We knew that it went to the blue bin, not the garbage one. But as soon as you went outside, that option didn't exist. It was just garbage pails. And so we were able, again, personally, I was the co-founder of that organization, and we installed over 10,000 units in the province of Quebec, funding cities and municipalities to put these systems in place. And not every system works. Some want to make it look really, really nice, but if the diagrams are not clear, then people are confused, and then you get contamination within your recycle stream, and then all of that goes to the garbage because it was too contaminated. So we learned a lot of capturing, a little bit like Rafi was saying. Once it's in the ocean, it's done. What Rafi is doing is focusing on the capturing the material before it goes to the ocean so it can still be used for something good. We saw that as well as an opportunity in the out-of-home consumption in arenas, parks, festivals, that kind of stuff. So we believe in recovering 100% of the containers that we put out there, and we won't stop until that happens. And we work with government, mostly municipal government and provincial governments, to do better on that front. Whatever system it's, deposit or blue box or whatever system that exists, as long as those bottles are captured.
Make really good points, and I would like to personally thank both of you for the amount of work that you do in terms of the capturing and in developing this kind of collection point. And we've mentioned multiple times through this discussion about just transfer of knowledge and this, how do we even get governments to be using the appropriate language? And I know, Rafi, just before we even started this conversation, you mentioned the open letter that you guys wrote to the Prime Minister of the UK from the COP26 and if you wanted to highlight, why you did that and why it's important for them to be using, government figures to be using the correct language when talking about sustainability approaches.
Thank you. Very kind of you to say, Sarah. In the UK, and in truth, you have the same issues in Canada, US, Germany, all over Western countries. There's a mislabeling and misinterpretation of recycling. When you put something in your recycling bin, you think your job is finished. But in the UK, 2/3 of our plastic waste is shipped out of sight, out of mind to poor nations. A lot of it is subsidized. So instead of sending money to, for example, a nurse or a social program, we're sending money to subsidize the shipping of our plastic waste that is unsorted and unusable to poorer nations. So one of the points that we want to highlight is that what recycling, what circular economy means isn't just putting something in a recycling bin, but then making sure that there's a supply chain where people are actually selecting and choosing products like Michelle is putting forward. When you do that on the other side, it doesn't matter what you put in your recycling bin if you're not buying recycled products on the other side. It's the only way circular economy works. You can put in as much recycling into the bin as you want, but if you don't have forward-thinking progressive companies buying, using, and offering products out of recycled content, it's all for nothing. So that was the core of our letter.
And very much needed, I think. And I think more government figures should probably read it besides just who you addressed it to, because I think it's important. Okay, so I have one final question for the both of you, actually, and I'm curious to know, we spoke about circular economy, we spoke about how important it is to implement that at sort of the beginning stages, but throughout the company completely, right? It's proven that, it needs to kind of be from the core values and it needs to be sort of the mission in all the aspects. But a lot of students here might be starting their own business or going to work in a company and want to implement some of these sustainable approaches. And I'm curious if you guys have any advice for the students who want to implement sustainable approaches and moving forward in their career, but might be challenging, and it might be not something that the company that they want to work for or their own company, it might be hard to start. So any type of advice that you'd give us, that'd be really great.
Well, I go first. So all I say is that believe, move forward in what you believe. Don't let perfection be in the way of progress. It's being pragmatic sometimes is one step forward in the right direction, and trying to find perfection is great. The roadmap to get there is better. So don't let perfection be in the way of progress. Believe in what you want to do, and every little thing that you can do to make life better in general will contribute. So it doesn't matter how small or what it is. Actions will make a difference.
I agree. Better is better. You don't need to be perfect. So, good products, better products, it's all really solid. And the only thing I would add is sustainability always takes a medium-term view. So if you want to do what's easier, then most likely you won't do it. If you go super long-term, you might not get the commercial payout that you're looking for. But sustainability is a medium-term view. It has to be.
Those are both great advice. And I'd just like to thank both of you guys for being here today. This was a very educational discussion and very inspiring. And I think you've inspired a lot of us to go take action, but also just to educate ourselves more on what's going on within our own cities, but also worldwide, and how we can make a bigger impact. I'd like to thank also everyone for attending today and all your questions. I know we didn't get to all of them, but feel free to send them to JSEC or CP3, and we can maybe transfer them to Rafi or Michelle, and we can get that answer for you in the future. Also, we're going to be sending, I think Olivia will be sending to everyone now, our social media websites, as well as Prevented Ocean Plastics website and Eska's sustainability approaches on their website. And we'd love, to do these type of events again. So make sure to follow JSEC and CP3 for more of these discussions and more of these events related to how we can implement sustainable approaches, and specifically for us, recycled plastic, because it is the future and it's something that we should all be making bigger strides to implement, because it's something that is close to at least myself, but I think everyone here, you guys being here, means that it's also close to you. So thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.